One of the clearest signs a girl is playing you is when she enjoys your attention but avoids any real investment. On the surface, it can feel like interest. She replies to your messages, laughs at your jokes, maybe even flirts just enough to keep the energy alive. But when you step back and look at the pattern, something is missing. There's no consistency, no follow through, no effort to move things forward in a meaningful way. Attention is easy to give, investment is not, and that difference matters. Anyone can enjoy being admired, desired, or validated, but when someone is genuinely interested, they contribute, they show up, they make time, they don't just receive, they participate. When she's only there for the attention, you'll notice that everything happens on her terms. Conversations start when she's bored, they end when something better comes along. You might find yourself initiating most of the contact, suggesting plans, and carrying the emotional weight of the interaction. Meanwhile, she stays comfortably passive. She doesn't reject you outright because that would end the attention, but she also doesn't step toward you because that would require effort and intention. This dynamic keeps you stuck in a loop. You invest more, hoping she'll eventually meet you halfway. But the more you invest, the less incentive she has to change. From her perspective, she's already getting what she wants, attention without responsibility. What makes this especially dangerous is how subtle it can be. There's just enough responsiveness to keep your hope alive, just enough warmth to make you question your instincts. You start rationalizing her behavior instead of observing it, and that's when you stop leading and start chasing. Real interest creates balance. It doesn't leave you wondering where you stand. It doesn't require constant effort just to keep things from fading. When attraction is mutual, both people naturally contribute to keeping the connection alive. If you're the only one investing time, energy, and emotional focus, you're not building attraction, you're feeding a one sided dynamic. And the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to step back without feeling like you've lost something. The moment you recognize this pattern, the solution becomes simple, though not always easy. You stop over giving, you stop filling the space she refuses to fill. You allow the dynamic to reveal itself. If she steps up, interest was real. If she fades, the truth was already there. Another major sign a girl is playing you is when her words sound interested, but her actions never match. She might tell you she likes you, say she misses you, or hint at things she wants to do together in the future. On the surface, it feels promising, but when it comes time to actually show up, something always gets in the way. Plans are delayed, messages go unanswered, effort stays minimal. Attraction isn't proven through words, it's proven through behavior. Anyone can say the right things when it costs them nothing. Real interest shows up in consistency, reliability, and follow through. When her actions don't align with what she says, it creates confusion, and confusion is often the tool that keeps you emotionally invested without getting anything real in return. This mismatch keeps you stuck in hope instead of reality. You start focusing on what she says instead of what she does. You replay compliments in your head, cling to promises that never materialize, and ignore the pattern forming right in front of you. And every time she fails to follow through, you make excuses for her. She's busy. She's stressed. She didn't mean it that way. But patterns don't lie. If she repeatedly cancels, avoids solid plans, or keeps things vague, that's not bad timing. That's a lack of priority. When someone wants to see you, they make time. When they don't, they make excuses that sound reasonable enough to keep you hanging on. This dynamic slowly erodes your self respect. You start negotiating with yourself, lowering expectations just to keep the connection alive. You accept inconsistency because you're emotionally attached to the idea of what could be, not the reality of what is. Mixed signals are not a mystery, they're a message. And the message is that she enjoys the emotional benefits of your interest without committing to anything that requires effort or risk. That's not attraction, that's convenience. Clarity doesn't come from pressing her for answers, it comes from observing her behavior and adjusting yours. When words and actions don't match, you stop investing based on what's said and start responding to what's done. If her actions rise to meet her words, the connection grows. If they don't, you walk away with your self respect intact. Always trust behavior over promises. A clear sign a girl is playing you is when she only reaches out when she's bored or needs validation. Communication appears randomly, often late at night, during slow days, or when she has nothing else demanding her attention. In those moments, you suddenly exist, but when you try to turn that interaction into something real, she disappears again. This pattern isn't accidental, it reveals how she values the connection. You're not part of her priority. You're part of her downtime. She enjoys the emotional boost she gets from knowing you're available, interested, and responsive. Your attention becomes a source of comfort and reassurance, not a pathway toward a deeper connection. You'll notice that these conversations rarely lead anywhere. They're often like casual and surface level. There's flirting, maybe even emotional openness, but no momentum. The moment you suggest meeting up or moving things forward, The energy shifts, responses slow down, plans remain vague. Suddenly, she's busy again. This creates a cycle that keeps you emotionally hooked. Every time she reaches out, it feels like progress. You think she's thinking about me, but what's really happening is she's checking to see if you're still there, still interested, still willing to give her attention without requiring anything in return. Over time, this dynamic conditions you to wait. You start anticipating her messages instead of living your life. Your mood rises when she texts and drops when she doesn't. That emotional dependency gives her control. Even if she's not consciously trying to manipulate you, real interest doesn't show up only when it's convenient. When someone values you, they integrate you into their life, they make room for you. They reach out with intention, not boredom. They don't disappear the moment they feel validated. The danger here is that validation seeking behavior often feels like attraction. The tone can be warm, the messages can be engaging. But attraction moves toward connection, validation moves toward comfort. And comfort without commitment keeps you stuck exactly where you are. The moment you stop feeding this pattern, everything becomes clear. When you don't immediately jump to entertain her boredom, when you don't act like every message is a gift, the dynamic shifts. Either she steps up with real effort or she fades when the validation is gone. Both outcomes give you clarity, and clarity is always better than confusion. Don't be the option she uses to feel wanted. Be the man who only engages where interest is real. One of the most overlooked signs a girl is playing you is how you feel while interacting with her. Instead of feeling desired, confident, and clear, you feel confused. You're constantly trying to read between the lines, decode messages, and figure out where you stand. That emotional uncertainty isn't accidental, it's a byproduct of an unbalanced dynamic. When attraction is genuine, it brings clarity. You don't have to guess. You don't have to analyze every word or pause. Interest shows itself naturally through consistency and effort. But when someone is playing games, confusion becomes the environment. It keeps you engaged while preventing resolution. You might experience emotional highs followed by long stretches of silence. One day she's warm and engaging, the next she's distant or unavailable. That unpredictability keeps you focused on her behavior instead of your own standards. You're no longer asking, is this good for me? You're asking, what did I do wrong? This internal shift is critical. The moment you start blaming yourself for someone else's inconsistency, your power erodes. You begin adjusting your behavior to regain her attention, texting differently, acting more agreeable, lowering boundaries. None of this increases attraction. It only reinforces the imbalance. Confusion creates emotional dependency. When clarity is missing, your mind fills in the gaps with hope. You imagine potential instead of observing reality. And the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to walk away, even when your needs aren't being met. A woman who is genuinely interested doesn't leave you emotionally disoriented. She doesn't keep you guessing to stay relevant. She doesn't use mixed signals to maintain control. Real attraction feels grounded and not chaotic. If you're consistently feeling anxious, uncertain, or off balance, that's information. Your emotional state is reflecting the dynamic you're in, and no amount of patience or effort will fix a connection built on inconsistency. The solution isn't to demand clarity from her, it's to create clarity for yourself. You step back, you stop over investing, you allow her actions, or lack of them, to speak clearly. When you stop participating in confusion, it either resolves itself or disappears entirely, and either way, you regain your self respect. Another strong sign a girl is playing you is when time keeps passing, but nothing ever progresses. Weeks turn into months, conversations repeat themselves, and the connection stays stuck at the same emotional level. There's talking, maybe flirting, maybe even emotional sharing, but there's no real movement toward intimacy, exclusivity, or building something tangible together. Progress is the natural result of mutual interest. When two people are genuinely attracted, things evolve, they spend time together, they create shared experiences, the connection deepens without force. But when one person is keeping things exactly where they are, it's usually intentional. Stagnation protects her comfort while costing you time. You may notice that whenever things seem like they might move forward, she subtly blocks it. Plans stay vague, opportunities get delayed, conversations circle back to the same topics. She enjoys the familiarity of your presence, but resists anything that would change the dynamic. This keeps you emotionally invested while preventing commitment. You're close enough to feel hope, but far enough to feel unfulfilled. That emotional limbo is where many men waste months, sometimes years, waiting for something that was never meant to happen. What makes this particularly damaging is how slowly it happens. There's no clear rejection, no dramatic ending, just enough connection to keep you engaged and just enough distance to avoid responsibility. Over time, you normalize the lack of progress and start believing this is simply how relationships unfold. But real attraction doesn't stall indefinitely, it moves forward or it fades. When progress is consistently blocked, it's a choice, not bad timing, not uncertainty, not confusion. She's getting what she wants from the situation without having to give more. This is where self respect becomes essential. You have to ask yourself whether the connection is actually adding value to your life or simply occupying emotional space. Time is the one resource you never get back, and investing it where there is no growth costs more than just opportunity. It costs momentum. The moment you stop tolerating stagnation, the truth becomes clear. Either the dynamic shifts because she's willing to invest, or it ends because it never had direction to begin with. Both outcomes free you. Never stay where progress is intentionally withheld. The final and most damaging sign a girl is playing you is when your self respect starts slipping just to keep her interested. You notice yourself doing things that don't feel natural to you. You text more than you want to. You respond faster than you normally would. You tolerate behavior you wouldn't accept from someone you truly valued. And deep down, you know what's happening, but you justify it because you don't want to lose her. This is where the cost becomes real. Attraction doesn't fade all at once. It fades the moment you abandon your standards. When you begin over giving, over explaining, or over accommodating, you communicate something without saying a word, that your boundaries are flexible when you're afraid. And fear is never attractive. What makes this trap dangerous is that it feels like effort. You tell yourself you're being patient, understanding, or mature. But patience without reciprocity is self betrayal. Understanding without boundaries is weakness disguised as kindness. And maturity doesn't mean tolerating inconsistency, it means recognizing when something isn't aligned with your values. As your self respect erodes, the dynamic shifts further out of balance. She senses that you're more invested than she is. And whether consciously or unconsciously, that changes how she treats you. The more you try to hold on, the less respect you receive, not because you're unworthy, but because you're no longer anchored in yourself. This creates a feedback loop. You feel her pulling away, so you give more, you feel distance, so you try harder. And with every adjustment, you move further away from the grounded, confident version of yourself that attracted her in the first place. The truth is, no connection is worth sacrificing your self respect. The right woman doesn't require you to shrink, chase, or negotiate your boundaries to keep her attention. She meets you where you stand. The moment you notice yourself bending to maintain interest, that's your signal to stop, to step back, to realign with who you are and what you deserve. When you choose self respect over validation, everything changes. You either regain balance in the connection or you gain the freedom to walk away. And either way, you win.